All right, welcome to a special new podcast series, The 20-Minute Investor, where my business partner Nathan and I bring you actionable nuggets and insights from our real estate investing journeys in bite-sized 20-minute episodes. I'm Ameen. My wife and I built a portfolio of 8 cash flowing rentals across 3 states while working full-time and raising a young family.
And I'm Nathan, a tech executive, more importantly, husband, father, and we managed to build a portfolio of rental properties across 2 states, thousands of miles away.
Together, we co-founded the Remote Real Estate Academy, where we coach investors on how to build their own portfolios of cash flowing rentals from anywhere in the world. Each week, we're going to share what's happening in our real estate businesses, including inside the Remote Real Estate Academy, and workshop the strategies that help investors like you build wealth without sacrificing your time. Now that that's out of the way, let's jump into it. Nathan, how was your week?
It's been pretty busy. How about yours?
Same. I traveled last weekend to a real estate retreat as part of Coach Carson's community, and that was in Charlotte, North Carolina. I live in Houston, Texas, so not too far of a journey, but it was, even though I've got the 3 kids at home, it was tiring in a whole different way because we had lots of activities and then social, you got the workshops during the day and you got the social activity at night, but it was a really rewarding experience. And then, of course, jumping right back into work on a Monday morning after something like that is not always easy, but it's been a busy but fruitful week.
Good. How big was the event? Carson's event?
I think there were about 80 people in attendance. So it was only open to members of his community, so it wasn't a public event. So it was nice because most of the people already knew each other. At least in some form or another, they interacted in the digital community, but this was the first time he had done anything in that community that's in person.
Very cool. Yeah, I like Coach Carson's content very much. Does a lot of great stuff.
Definitely. Well, I think since this is our first episode, we're still feeling out what order to go in, but we promise to keep things under 20 minutes because that's kind of our philosophy here, is that our portfolios and our strategy that we teach is how to run your portfolio in 20 minutes a day or less. So we figured the 20-minute episodes are a good touch here. But why don't we maybe look at what's going on in our portfolios to start? I know you were working on a deal. Can you share something about that?
I am still working on a deal. I've had a busy, you and I talked about this, but I've had a busy, let's say, January on the W-2 front. Pretty hectic start to the year, which is not unusual, but that's just to say that kind of on the real estate side, on the real estate portfolio side, things had slowed down a little bit for me and my wife. And then just recently, late last week, I think it was, actually an old, a real estate investor that I met, an old friend, sorry, the person is not old, but an old friend in my real estate investing network that, I met through networking years ago, and then just kind of sporadically stay in touch from time to time, reached out with a deal of theirs in the market one of the markets that we're investing in. And they're looking to offload it, and they wanted to see if we were interested in its particular or we're particularly interested in this particular property because it's fits our buy box. It's exactly what we look for, typically in the exact same zip codes and areas. But this person's also open to seller finance. So today I spent a bit of time just kind of working through details, kind of explaining what we need to be able to take on this property in terms of returns and things like that. Now they went back on their end to figure out what they can do, and we're going to try to work something out. So even better if we could do it on seller finance, no need to go through a bank or anything like that, add another property. So hopefully it'll pan out, but we're still working on that one.
Awesome. You hear all the time about people who want to find properties that are available for seller finance, and also people bringing you deals, right? I think that's one of the things we like to teach quite a bit, is how to build relationships with other people and share what your buy box is, so that instead of you having to go fish for every single deal, you get people that they know you as the guy that has that specific buy box in that specific area. Can you just share a little more about how you met this person and like what did you do to frame that relationship?
That's a great question. I can't remember how we met. I think if I remember correctly, and I'm going to go out on a limb here simply because how we reconnected recently was over LinkedIn. And I think we might have met over LinkedIn or through LinkedIn, where I must have posted something, or I was talking about real estate, or I commented on something real estate, and then we found each other and then started exchanging a bit. And then this person and I if I remember correctly, this person at the time was looking to start their real estate journey, and they needed a bit of help, and I helped them out for a bit in the early days. This is a few years ago. Hopefully, I'm not getting any of this wrong, but I think this is what happened. And then they acquired one or more properties in the same market. I kind of helped them out with some of our network, the people we work with, property manager, lender, insurance broker, that type of stuff. They closed on this, and I believe other deals as well, and now they want to offload this one. They're starting to pivot their strategy a bit, so they came back and they said, hey, I know you buy these types of properties in these zip codes, so would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, of course I am, let's talk.
Moral of the story.
But it was all to, I think, to your point, or maybe where that question was going, it was like, even especially when you get started, you hear a lot about these these experienced investors, bigger pocket stories, that type of stuff, where people get deals brought to them, off market. Just, this person brought me a deal and I found this deal through that person. You hear all those stories and you're like, well, that sounds great. How the heck does that happen? When is that going to happen to me and whatnot? And I think what I came to realize or understand is it just takes time and patience. And over the years, building these relationships with other investors, people who invest in your network, online, offline, all that type of stuff, is after a while, it pays dividends, right? It comes back. And this is literally what happened in this case. And again, the deal's not closed yet, but it's still a good example of what happens as you kind of build your network, grow your network, and meet people. And I also fundamentally believe in karma, right? I think our relationships started by helping each other out in this case, and now this is coming back. So
yeah, I feel like
don't be a jerk, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Be a nice person.
Yeah, and look for ways to add value, right? You hear that said all the time, but I think you're spot on that it takes a while to build these types of relationships. Not every single person that you contact is going to be a good fit for you. You might not be compatible or have the same interests, but if you're investing in a market, especially if it's out of state, and you take the time to build, you could even do something like try and make one new contact per week in the industry, whether it's another investor.
I had that as an actual goal for a few years when I was getting started. In my goal tracker, I had meet 2 new people a week that I was tracking, and I did that for many, many years.
Exactly. And it can be stuff like even just commenting on posts in a local Facebook group. You could use bigger pockets. I know we both have mixed feelings about the signal to noise ratio there, but there are lots of good people that post on there. But there's a number of different ways you can go about it. But yeah, this is just such a good example of that early effort to meet people paying off with, at a minimum, a lead and potentially a close deal if all goes
100%. Yeah.
Love it.
It's also about creating these networks, or creating these network opportunities and connections with people without expecting anything in return, right? I wasn't actively going into, I talked about my goals of meeting 2 new people a week, and I wasn't going into those hoping that I would get something out of it. It really was just, let me start connecting with people and let me start meeting people. And I never, went into this particular relationship thinking or wanting something from it. I was just, trying to help, trying to give, being a good guy and talking to this person. And now it's coming back to pay, in a sense.
Yeah, I think the second moral of that story, though, is to be open about what it is you're looking for. Not from a transactional standpoint, not, hey, I'll only talk to you if you bring me leads that fit this buy box. But I think when you talk openly about the type of properties you buy, where you buy them, then you become known as the person who has that specific criteria, right? That's why we spend a lot of time like refining a buy box. I know one of the things I love on your website, you have your buy box posted to where it's just a URL so people can click on it. And if somebody asks like, what's your buy box? You can just direct them to the URL. And it's clear as day, like with all the parameters and even some pictures. I thought that was a really cool approach to it.
Yeah, I have it's a page on our site that just describes our buy box, and I think I link to that page in my email signature, for example. So that's the first thing people see if they ever want to click on a link that's tied to me somehow. It's my buy box.
Yeah. So if I hear you talking about how you can't find any deals, my question to you is going to be, what are you doing to explain what it is that you're looking for, and how many people have you reached out to recently that are in that area? So that's a good example. Let's see. In my world, I think most people listening to this may be aware that my wife and I are doing a ground up development project. We're building a assisted living home here in Houston area that is a very involved process, much different than our background buying single family rentals. And we're deep in the process of the due diligence for land that we're under contract for. So we have 7 acres under contract, and we're about 7 days into a 120-day due diligence period. And so we have to
It's
do
a long
everything
time.
from, yeah, it is, but we might need every day of it because you got to take raw land, which currently has a bunch of trees on it, and we have to map out all the site work, right? All the infrastructure, how we're going to run
Yep.
utilities. We got to get bids from all the different builders. And, those are pretty big fluctuations. We're talking about building either one or possibly two 10,000 square foot homes. And they're meant to be luxury homes. So these are not cheap. And so there's a ton of components that go into that. The financing probably being the biggest
Yeah.
make or break.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then finding the right, reputable vendors who can help us actualize our
I've
vision.
I've never done a transaction like this, obviously. Well, you know this because you and I've talked, but I'm curious, do you have any skin in the game at this point? So you said you have 120 days to go through kind of the due diligence process and you're under contract and on land. What happens if, I mean, can you pull out at any point or what happens? Do you have any skin in the game at this point? Any risk, I guess?
Yeah, so we put $25,000 down as earnest money, the majority of which is currently refundable. There is like a small fee if you pull out. Our due
Hmm.
diligence clause and our feasibility period is pretty broad in nature. So for the most part, at our discretion, if we find something that makes the deal not viable, we can pull out and we just forfeit that small portion that's
Okay.
non-refundable. But there will be probably in the next week or so pursuit costs, right? We got to do environmental studies. We probably need to get a new survey. You have to start paying for the site plans. The appraisal, a commercial appraisal, is going to be needed to get the
Of
SBA
course.
loan that we're going to use, and those are upwards of $10,000. And if you go down that road and start getting all these things and paying for them, and you end up
Of
pulling out
course.
of this
Yeah.
plot of land, like those are sunk costs.
You've paid.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so the risk, as of right the time of this recording, we're not in a huge risk position, but by the next time we record one of these, we will be, starting to shell out for sure.
And everything's going good so far? I mean, I know it's early stages, but are you
Yeah,
guys on track? Is everything good?
it is. And, we are working with a mentor who has built this exact building in another part of Texas, not too far from here. Similar demographics, similar like costs for materials, similar regulatory environment. So we have a playbook that we really need to just execute. But these big moving variables with the construction costs and the infrastructure, that's kind of like that's what's occupying most of our headspace right now is just trying to make the numbers work. But we feel very good and confident about where we're at thus far.
And what's next after the 120 days, if all goes well?
You have another 45 days to close the transaction from there. So that I think is just giving some wiggle room to the lender to make sure they process everything and that we are on track to, because the moment that loan funds, your shovel's in the ground and you're getting to
Yeah.
work.
Fun. Exciting. Very different from a 3-bed, 2-bath home rental in St. Louis, which is what I know the most.
Yeah, but and we talk about this with our students all the time, but it's like your the time horizon for your goals and the like specific circumstances in your life can always evolve and change. And
Yeah, of course.
I still firmly believe that single family, long distance buy and hold real estate is and rental properties are the best foundational strategy. We plan to hold the majority of our portfolio, and once we get this up and running, we plan to continue to invest in single family, most likely out of state
Hmm.
rentals. So I think this project and the reason we took it on was largely because we have 3 young kids. My wife had to choose kind of after taking breaks for both of our kids,
Of course.
all 3 of our kids when they were born. She took some time off work. We had to decide, is she going to go back into a traditional corporate job, or are we going to try out some of these skills and you know experience that we've got and put it to a different use? And so we decided to shoot our shot, which we're really excited about. So, well, we have only a
How
few
much?
minutes. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious how open was your wife? What was the process like, I guess, to get your wife in, to this point, right? Going from I had a job, corporate job, then I had kids, mother raising kids, to not going back to corporate, going all in real estate. How was that journey? Was she always all in with you and you guys were kind of aligned from the start, or did it take some convincing?
She's always been interested in our business and like particularly the impact that it can have for our family, right? Both of us
Yeah.
worked, we were very underpaid, overworked positions. She was in nonprofit, which doesn't sound like it would be that grueling, but the one she was at was pretty intense. And I was in the concerts industry, and so we kind of know what it feels like to put a ton of energy into something and not be able to extract a ton of value out of it. We got a lot of skills and experience, but financially it was really capped, like what we could do. And so when we started investing in real estate, we saw like the potential financial benefit for our family. I
Hmm.
like the phrase, own your upside, right? Like we're investing in a business that
Yeah.
has ultimately we can raise the ceiling as high as we want. It's not capped by an employer. So that idea has always sat well with her. But I think this project ignited a passion because of experience she had with her family members. It's assisted living, it's senior care, it's end of life care, and it's specifically memory care. And she had some experience with her father and her grandparents that really spoke to her to where this is now not only tapping into the real estate that we already know has the potential we want, but it has that kind of personal meaning, and is her way of kind of giving back and providing a better experience than what her family members went through. So I think that
Yeah.
was the tipping point to get hey, this full time dedication.
Yeah, and there's an aspect to assisted care that just is, yes, it's a business, of course, but I feel like there's still an aspect of it that is giving back and helping, right, those in need in a sense. And
Yeah.
again, I know it's a business. I understand that. And I'm going to get roasted for saying this because it's still going to be operated as a business, but I just think it's a good mission, personally.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think what you said is important though. There's a distinction, right? Like we're building on raw land. We're taking that, we're developing it and creating a structure. That's the real estate. But it is really important to realize that the business is
Yeah.
a very, very active endeavor. And the stakes are very high. It's a ton of responsibility. And ultimately it's going to be a lot of effort to get it to where we want it to be. So it is not in any way, shape, or form a passive activity. And we're well aware of that. So I get a lot of people asking me like, "Oh, you guys are going into residential assisted living. What's the process like transitioning?" It's really not the same thing, right? Like the way we're
Yeah.
choosing to do it is extremely hands-on and involved. But again, the upside is enormous, both from a financial standpoint and an impact standpoint.
Yeah, of course. No, it's awesome.
So
Well,
if we want
good
to,
luck. Congrats. I don't know, both, because I know that the road ahead's still pretty long to get this up and running, but you're making awesome progress. So kudos to both of you.
yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Well, to keep in advertising with our 20-minute episodes, we might have to try and like cap this first topic here. And then I know we're going to come back and give some fun updates on how things are going inside the academy and some changes we've made. So maybe that'll be a little tease for what we do next time. But anything else you want to add on the topic of our portfolios?
No, not right now. I would say that was a good tease. Come join us next time, and we'll talk about what's happening in the academy a bit more.
Awesome. Let's do it. And in keeping with the name, the 20-minute investor, Nathan and I did put together a workshop where it's kind of the core foundation of our academy and what we teach. And it's called the 20-minute investor workshop. We show different examples of how we spend our 20 minute a day that we set aside for real estate, including workflows. And here's what we do if we're in an active buying phase. Here's what we do if we're in a maintenance phase. And we have just kind of library of SOPs of how we approach that. If you guys want to check that out, you can go to 20minuteinvestor.com. That's the number 20minuteinvestor.com, and we will send it to you for free. So thank you for tuning in to episode 1, and we will look forward to doing this again.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron.
Sweet.
Cool.
What do you think about? Do you have the time